Welcome to the Louie Herron podcast, where I'm going deep into business, sales, leadership, and life. And I mean life, from the boardroom to the bedroom, from business acquisitions to personal addictions, from being saved yet still feeling like a slave, from manning up to mousing out, dealing with divinity to reality. This podcast is dedicated to growth, learning, inspiration, and healing. Jump in, hang on, and hang out. You'll never know which topic I'll tackle next. But one thing's for certain, I'm here to share my experiences, strengths, failures, and hope, all to help us live life at the highest level we can.
Feeling good. What's up, guys? What's up? Man, I had to play a little music, man. I was feeling a little good this morning. Figured I'd give you a little something to get you excited. I got a good topic for you today. Those that are in business and sales, leadership, those that want to learn how to close more deals. Got a couple of things for you that I think will help you. This will be a little shorter podcast. Those that are tuning in for the first time, this is the Louie Herron podcast. Thank you so much. Do me a favor. I look at the analytics. There is a large percentage of folks that listen to this are not subscribed. Please do me a great big favor. Subscribe and share this with those that may need some assistance with leadership, sales, business, and life's lessons, things that we talk about, the real, the raw, the relevant, the stuff that really means a lot to those that are trying to grow and expand, especially with men around the world. That's the whole goal here, guys. So I want to get into today about closing deals. It's funny. I remember the very first deal I ever closed, Mr. Stevens, 1995 Honda Del Sol. I'll never forget this. I was a brand new car salesman, 1995, and I was greener than the day is long. I had no idea what the hell I was doing, really didn't. But I had a lot of enthusiasm, I had a lot of zeal, and man, I wanted it so bad. And I remember Mr. Stevens was the coolest cat. He was probably about 60. And I guess maybe midlife, he was buying a Honda Del Sol with the old little tiny Honda sports car. Wasn't really that fast, obviously, but I remember trying to close that deal, and I didn't have the skills. I didn't have the mindset. I didn't have the things developed internally. And Bart Kramer, if you're listening out there in the world today, Bart, thank you so much. Bart Kramer was a phenomenal closer. He helped close the deal. Then he played a nasty trick on me, told me that he would watch the deal. I went to grab some lunch, and when I got back, he told me the customer left and everybody was sideways and the general manager was upset with me. And anyways, it's kind of a shit show, but it was kind of funny, but just teaching me a lesson to always stay with your customer. But closing car deals, closing transactions, look, that's the crux of everything, right? We can do all the steps that precede a close in a deal, right? The meet and greet, the qualification, the understanding of what the customer needs. Physically land them on the right product or service that is beneficial to them and their family. Walk them through a demonstration presentation, give them the product knowledge, give them the understanding they need of how this has value for them. But then at some point, we've got to do the close. So I want to talk about that this morning, but I want to share with you some things that I think are extremely important with my experience in over 30 years in the auto business and closing a lot of car deals, training a ton of salespeople, sales managers, general managers, doing a lot of consulting. Let's talk about the basics of the close, right? To the basics of the close. Only then can you build the confidence and handle the close with any prospect when you have when you eliminate the fear and discomfort. A lot of people that are starting in sales have a fear and discomfort about closing a deal. They don't like the pressure applied on the consumer. They don't know how to actually convince, persuade, motivate, and get the customer to understand that their wants and desires actually close the deal. It's not so much your word tracks of pressuring, although we do get in those situations on occasion. We'll have customers at times that don't want to move forward because of either past experience or not ready to make a decision or uncertain about the product or service or the price that may be associated with the product or service. But I will lend to you this one fact, that price is truly not the real deal on any transaction. I think price is important, but it's not the main thing. And I think as a salesperson, we sometimes associate with price in the close, and I'm going to get into that in just a second. But here's the deal. The number one thing you can do to close more car deals and increase your transactions, honestly, guys, I'm telling you from personal experience, and I'm telling you from training a lot of people, look, it's practice, drill, rehearse, practice, drill, rehearse, practice, practice, practice. What are you going to practice? The words, the scripts, the word tracks. Remember, listen, closing car deals is all about a mindset. It's about skill sets and it's about habits. If you're going to be the best closer in the building, if you're going to be known as the master closer, you've got to memorize the words, the scripts, the word tracks it takes. And I promise you, if you can dial it down and narrow it down, you will be a phenomenal closer. I remember one time, this is embarrassing, but I'm going to share it with you. It's the real and the raw. I remember I was at Honda of Fort Myers. This was back in 2003. And I was a general sales manager at a Honda dealership, and I went out to close a deal for a sales guy. I went out to the customer, literally every single thing the customer said. I was so trained, so well versed. Everything a customer said, I had a rebuttal. In fact, as it was coming out of their mouth, I already knew what I was about to say. And what I say was embarrassing is literally, I spent probably 15 minutes with a customer. Shortly thereafter, the customer said, man, you sound like a robot. Now, this really caught my attention. It really taught me a valuable lesson. I realized at that moment that it was not my personality. It was the scripts and the words that I had memorized, and I had not made those my own. I was regurgitating them almost robotically. And from that moment forward, I went in and dove deep into figuring out, how do I make this my own, right? I've got it memorized. So now I've got to put my personality to it, because I was embarrassed. The consumer was literally like, dude, you are like a robot. Like, I say this, you say this. I say this, you say that. And she was right. She was 100% right. And it was embarrassing. We went on to eventually close the car deal. We kind of laughed about it. I then, after the deal, explained to her how much I trained and practiced. And she was like, dude, you need to like really chill out and really just identify your own style, your own personality, because you sounded so scripted. I was embarrassed. But here's my point. Practice, drill, rehearse. Once you practice the words, you know the word tracks, you know the scripts, at that point, you've got to make them your own. You've got to tailor them to your own personality. The other thing I'll tell you is product and service you're selling. It all starts in your head, right? It all starts in your head, right? You lose confidence, you lose your talent. Right? The talent and skills and ability you have to persuade and influence and motivate. If you have no confidence, you're done. You've got to have extreme confidence in the product and service that you're actually offering to the consumer. So think about this for a moment. Would you actually use the product or service that you're selling? It's a very important question. If you're going to sell it, would you use it? Right? There's a lot of guys that are in the financial services business, right? And they're selling products and services regarding life insurance and insurances. Would you actually employ those in your own family for yourself? Right? There are people that are selling cars. Would you actually drive what you're selling? Now, I know there's a lot of circumstances that keep you from getting a new car and all those kind of things. But the point is, the product or service you're selling, are you willing to actually employ the same product and service for yourself? It all starts in your head. You've got to have that confidence in what you're selling and what service you're providing for the consumer. If you don't have the confidence, you're going to lose the talent, the art, the skill of actually conveying that with conviction. So let's get to the first point I want to share with you about closing. Never, ever, ever make the customer wrong. Right? Here's words never, in my opinion, to say in the close. Never say no. Never say I disagree. Never say we can't do that. Never say this is not possible. Never say we won't. Again, everything is optimistic. Everything is an approach that we can do, we will do, we'll find a way, we'll figure it out. If you want it, we'll make it happen. You can't close a deal when you're in disagreement. Always keep things positive and make it easier for your customer to say yes. Think about it for a second. You can't close something that you're in an argument with the consumer with, right? So here's some prerequisites for closing the sale. Okay, here's some things you got to know about when you're about ready to close a deal. You've already gone through the product presentation. You've gone through the steps that precede the close. Do you have the decision maker there? That's important. Right? Who are all the decision makers in this whole process? Do you have the wherewithal to actually close the deal? Do you have the resources available to you? In other words, you're about to get into a close. Do you have management standing by? Do you have resources that you can show them via whether it's verbal, whether it's PowerPoint, whether it's brochures, pamphlets? Do you have the wherewithal to actually close the product? Here's the other thing. Are you sold on the product? Kind of like I told you earlier. Are you sold, man? Are you really, really 100% sold? This is the best product or service for your consumer. Do you believe in yourself? These are all prerequisites before you actually close the deal. Do you really believe in you? And when I say that, think about this for a minute. A lot of times people are uncomfortable to ask for all the money for a product or service. Let's say you're in coaching. Let's say you're selling an automobile. Let's say you're selling a product or service, an insurance product, and you're scared to divulge that the price is $100,000 or $50,000. Right? Like literally, like, do you believe in your product well enough? And do you believe in your family enough? Do you believe in yourself enough that you're worthy of that? You can present it with conviction. Do you have 100% confidence in the product? We talked about that earlier. Another prerequisite for the close, getting a written offer. So here's what I want to say about that. It's extremely critical when you're negotiating and putting a car deal, I say car deal, forgive me that Freudian slip. I'm so used to the car business. But when you're doing any business for that matter, getting a written offer. In other words, as the seller, we give them the proposal first. Once we give the proposal, at that point, it's extremely important to get a written offer back. Think about a real estate transaction. Man wants to sell his house for $700,000. He sends the offer $700,000. What is the realtor looking for? He's looking for a deposit and a written offer in return, signed, written, right? That brings a form of commitment. Very, very important in closing a car deal. It's a prerequisite. You want to make sure there's a written offer back and forth. Doesn't mean you can't close a deal without a written offer. I've closed many deals where someone wasn't ready to do business at that moment, wouldn't put something in writing, but we ended up closing the deal. That's a whole different ballgame, and we can get into that as well. But the other thing of a prerequisite to closing a sale is having a sense of urgency and a call to action. In other words, you want to make sure that you're actually putting a sense of urgency. Let me give you an example. In the car business, I remember I've got a customer. Let me give you an example. I've got Miss Johnson, who is on the fence about making a decision, loves the product, loves everything, but can't make a decision right now because she is just on the fence. And I share with her about the allocation. This is called the allocation close. This is one of the best closes that I put together that is legitimate. Because one thing you don't want to do with a consumer is lie to a customer, right? You want to be as straight up as you possibly can. In the car business, every single day we RDR, report cars sold to the manufacturer. When we report cars sold to the manufacturer, that gives us an opportunity to earn more inventory, right? So the more you sell, the more you earn, right? So we report daily. So I always would tell a customer, listen, I understand you're not in a position to make a decision today. However, would you allow me to give you two prices? One that's good for the allocation, which closes tonight at 9 p.m., or one that's good for the rest of the month. At that point, the consumer will always say yes. Now, what I'm going to try to do to the best of my ability is sweeten the deal the best I possibly can for the allocation close. In other words, if you can make a decision with me today, here are the benefits if we can put the deal together. Number one, the dealership will earn more inventory. You could get a phenomenal deal, and it's a win-win for everybody. However, if you don't want to make the decision, I completely understand. I'll give you another price that's good for the rest of the month that's still highly competitive. So what happens at that point is now I've got some substantiation on adjusting a price that may persuade or influence somebody to make a decision if I know they love the product. I will tell you, if they're not in love with the product, I wouldn't fool with the price. I mean, the bottom line is if someone doesn't love what they're purchasing or it doesn't meet their needs or their expectations, when you're dabbling with price, I think you're going down the wrong road. I think the price is the very last thing you tamper with because your product or service should be so strong that the buyer truly solely trusts in you because of the product, not necessarily because of the words you choose. So again, I think a sense of urgency or call to action, you need to be ready to go with as far as a prerequisite for closing a deal. You got to know where this thing is going. I often look at it like an attorney. You're sitting in the jury, you're sitting in the chambers, and you're asking questions to whoever's on the stand you already know the answer to, so you can turn to the jury and seal the deal. Right. So I think you got to really be looking down the road and from the needs assessment, from all the things that preceded the close, all that information you gathered, you should be ready to use in the close. So let's talk about why you struggle in the close. Now, this is something that I think is extremely important that you may never think about. Why you struggle in the close. The first thing that comes to mind is no commitment to greatness. I think a lot of times you may struggle in the close because you're not committed to your own greatness. In other words, if you were committed, you've practiced, drill, rehearse, you've earned the right to ask for somebody's business, you put in the work, you've memorized the scripts, you understand what you're doing in the close, that's when you no longer struggle. But when you're not committed to greatness, to being the best you can, not only for you, but your children, your family, your goals, your legacy, the things that you want to build for yourself, That's the most important piece, in my opinion, when you're closing a car deal, because your conviction, your confidence is at a high level. Second thing, shortage of closing material. Why you struggling to close? If you're simply just presenting figures and numbers, but you don't have anything to substantiate. Again, I look at brochures. I look at reports. I look at comparisons. I look at, again, what materials are you using in a close? Think about this. When you're presenting a proposal to a guest, to a consumer, do you have supporting documents that support what they see? Remember, people believe more what they see than what they hear. So the more you can show them that justify what they're buying from credible sources, the better off you're going to be. If you don't use any supporting material, you've got a chink in your armor. I think you can really raise your game by figuring out, what can I bring to the table when I go to close a deal that will support what I'm actually closing the deal on. I think the other thing is, you believe price is the issue. Listen to me. I think price is always important, but remember, the consumers already shop. They already know what they want. They have an idea of what they want to pay for whatever product or service that they're actually involving in. But when the value exceeds price, people will pay for it. The goal is for you to find out early in the game, early in the transaction, what are the pain points? What is the most important thing? And then your job is to hit those pain points throughout the process, to when you get to the point of the close, it's not even an issue, because you've solved all the pain points with your product. So again, price is the very last thing. And I think most salespeople get caught up in the fact that they think price is the first thing. Yes, people will shop you. Yes, people will compare, but they can't compare you. They can't compare your value, what you bring to the table, your professionalism, the things that you've done that preceded the close that allowed them to see who you are and what you brought to the table. The other thing that I think that causes you to struggle in the close is you buy the customer's story. What do I mean by that? I mean simply, the customer wants to think about it. They want to discuss it with somebody. All these things are maybe valid. However, remember, they're just a stall. They're just keeping you at bay long enough for them to gather themselves to understand what decision they're about to make. It's your job to figure out the story they're creating is just an excuse. You have the ability to overcome that by understanding, once again, the value. What did they say they came to look for? What did they say they needed in the process? And what's most important? When you can hit those points, again, you can overcome and not struggle in the close. Another thing, struggling in the close, your unwillingness to pressure. Now, before I say pressure, I do not mean demand or listen, this is good for today only and all those kind of tactics. I don't think that works. I think the pressure really comes with the persuasion and the understanding, once again, of the customer's needs that they stated early in the game, the pain points they stated early in the game, and how your product or service actually mitigates and ensures the gap up from what they really wanted to what you have to offer. By you applying some pressure, all that means is we're asking for the business. In other words, if I've done my job and I've done what I'm supposed to do, it is your job as a salesperson to actually ask for the business. You should not feel uncomfortable. You should not feel like you're doing something wrong. That is your job. Your job is to meet and greet, assess the needs, find out the pain points, find the product that works best for them and their family, identify what those are, give them the benefits, the presentation, the demonstration of what all those products will provide for them and their family, how it's going to serve them and help them. And then your job is to ask for the business. Whether they buy or don't buy is not really relevant in this moment. The key is your willingness to ask for the business. Okay. So again, the last thing I think that causes you to struggle in the close is the lack of financial goals. And here's what I mean by that. I think a lot of times we don't consider, when you're in a close, that you're closing for your family, you're closing for yourself. When that customer leaves, your next move is to find another customer, right? You either need to get in front of a customer, be on the phone with a customer, be get face to face with a customer, or you're unemployed as a salesperson. So the goal is to get in front of another customer. When you have somebody in front of you, I want you to think about something. When you have your financial goals in line, what it is you want for you and your family, and they're so dialed in, that customer is the only focus you have. I mean, think about this for a second. If you're in a transaction with a consumer, and you were told that, look, by the end of the day, if you don't close a deal, that basically you're evicted from your place, your family's on the street, you're on the street. Can you close that deal? All of a sudden, you have a high sense of urgency, right? Those financial goals are like, look, I need to close this deal or we're getting evicted. That mindset, we'll go back to mindset, skill sets, and habits. If you have that approach, not to pressure the customer to the point where you push them away. I'm saying have the self-confidence in your own financial goals. I need to make this deal. I'm worth it. I'm worthy. I've studied. I've practiced. I've drilled. I've rehearsed, and I'm worth it. You go for the close. And I think the lack of financial goals is a huge part of why you struggle. These are basic fundamentals that you probably don't think about. These are things that precede ever getting in front of a customer. But I think you need to make sure that you're dialed in on the things that cause you to struggle. The last two things is no training and you're not sold yourself. I think when whether you're new in any business or you've been doing it for 20 years, everybody, myself included, always needs to be training. Always train. Practice, drill, rehearse, practice, drill, rehearse. Again, you got to be sold on yourself and what it is you're trying to accomplish in your industry. I think that's gravely, gravely important. These are some basic fundamentals in terms of closing a deal, closing a transaction. Again, all the steps that precede a close, those that are listening, that are in leadership, that are in sales, those that own their own business. We are always closing employees. We are closing customers. We are closing ourselves, most importantly, every single day. I believe if you employ some of the things that I've talked about in this particular podcast, I think it'll help you in all those facets, especially even when you break it down to your body being balanced in business. Think about your body. We talk about the health and wellness, decisions you have to make on a daily basis, why you struggle in closing yourself on eating the right foods, getting into the gym, showing up, doing the things you need to do 3-4 days a week, making sure you're getting steps in. That's just your health, your business, right? You're talking about your spirituality. What work do you need to put in? How do you need to close yourself? What are the prerequisites of closing yourself on making sure you're staying connected to God on a daily basis? Look, these things are invaluable on a daily basis to keep you motivated, inspired, persuading yourself to go to the next level so you can maximize and focus on expansion. Remember, I can't say it enough. It's not about perfection. It's about expansion. It's not about retraction. It's about expansion. If you stay the same every single day, you're not staying the same. You're going backwards. So every day, let's fulfill moving forward. Those that want to close more deals, take this podcast. Do me a favor, share it with some folks that you know that are in the sales industry, that are in leadership, that those that even want to get better with themselves personally, because all of this still applies, in my opinion. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll do a second piece, maybe even a third piece. I've got a ton more content just on closing and putting deals together in any industry that you're in. If anyone hasn't told you, look, that they love you, your brother loves you, man. You've got what it takes on a daily basis to get better, to get stronger, to get faster, to get leaner, to get meaner. You've got what it takes, but I promise you, you've got to bring yourself to a point of decision. You've got to decide, right? When you look at the word decide, decision, right? Incision means to cut into, excision means to cut out, and decision means to cut off. Once you cut off all the distraction, all the bullshit, all the other possibilities, and you are laser beam focused, you can go to the next level. You can improve your life with your marriage, your relationships, your children, your finances, your bank account, your business, your leadership, all those things that matter most. Even your spirituality and what you do with God on a daily basis require you to have this expansion mindset. So look, those that have left a review, thank you so very much. If you haven't left a review, please do so. And please do me a favor, subscribe. Share this with somebody that may need a little bit of motivation in their sales ability or maybe their closing ability or even themselves personally. Again, this is a Louie Herron podcast. I look forward to seeing you next week. You guys have a phenomenal week. Kick some ass, do what you do, and we'll see you next time on the Louie Herron podcast.